feel like there is a huge sigh of relief in Las Vegas.
There is. Their star running back, Ashton Jeanty, was helped off the field yesterday in practice. There was a lot of concern initially, but it turns out it's an ankle injury, and the Raiders do not seem concerned that it's serious. If it's a sprained ankle and it's serious, it could theoretically threaten Week 1, but we're not at that point yet, and the Raiders believe they got very good news on Ashton Jeanty last night after what they saw on the field. 49ers got good injury news. They activated George Kittle, the tight end from the PUP list, which allows him to practice and, could put him on track to play Week 1. Christian McCaffrey also returned to practice after a little more than a week off. He said that was just routine maintenance and part of the plan for getting him ready to start the season. So if we take him at his word, he should be good to go for Week 1. Remember, they open against the Rams in Australia. And Browns coach Todd Monken said yesterday he was going to name his starting quarterback today. So this saga of the competition between Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders, which took a couple of really kind of weird and interesting turns over the weekend, seems like it's headed for a resolution today. Todd Monken says he will likely select a quarterback to start Week 1, and we'll find out which guy it is.
In case you didn't see/hear this over the weekend, let's give you at least some sense of what Dan Graziano's talking about there. Deshaun Watson after a tough night, and the crowd was booing him at home. Here were his comments after the game on Saturday.
I think the whole world knows it has nothing to do about the performance. It's a little bit personal than that, so I think that's it's a disrespectful thing. Last time I played on this field, I tore my Achilles. And that same fan base, they cheered when I got hurt. So does that have to do with, what does that have to do with anything about performance? When a person get hurt, especially for your own city, and they cheer.
Does any of that make you regret coming here?
No, I don't regret anything in my life.
So there's that. So the relationship that had already been questionable between Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland fan base takes that turn over the weekend. They will name their starting quarterback today. What do you think?
They should name Shedeur Sanders to be their starting quarterback. I don't think they can have Deshaun Watson on the team after that interaction. And if they somehow come out today and name Deshaun Watson their starting quarterback, if I was a Browns fan, I would not go to the games. You cannot handle the press conference in that way, given the circumstances of what has transpired since they gave you $230 plus, $250 million guaranteed, and the lack of performance and availability has shown itself in a city like Cleveland. I feel bad for those fans that they have to sit there and listen to that. So if this was strictly a football decision, it'd probably be a coin flip. 50-50, whatever guy you want to start, go ahead. But after that, I don't think you can have him as your starting quarterback. I don't think you can have him on your team.
What do you think?
Well, I mean, if you decide that the press conference is where you're going to stop going to the games, it might be a little late. It might be a little late on that decision. However, I understand maybe wanting to start Deshaun Watson and then going to Shedeur Sanders. I think getting booed or cheered when you get injured, like that's ugly stuff. You never wanted to happen. Getting booed by your home fans, it's terrible, it sucks, but it's part of it. But he brought it up, and you can't disentangle Deshaun Watson from the 27 allegations. I think it's important to understand that. Also, he was never charged. That's something that I think he holds on to maintain his innocence. But I think it's impossible for any of us to listen to what he's saying and to see how the fans are reacting and not accept that this is directly connected to the fact that he was accused by 27 different women of sexual assault. So
all of that said, and certainly not to minimize that in any way at all, if he had performed at a high level on the field, the fact of the matter, the fact of sports and sports fandom is that a large chunk of the Cleveland fans would not be booing him. They would be cheering for him because of what he had delivered for their team. And it's for him to sit up there and say that it's not performance related is incredibly obtuse. Because
it's also not accurate.
This. Of course it's not accurate. And if he either knows that or he's just completely oblivious, and I'm not sure which one it is, and I'm not sure which one is worse. Right. Because he has, go back, okay? He sat out a year because he didn't like Houston anymore. He had a list of teams he wanted to be traded to. He told Cleveland they were off the list. They come back, they guarantee him $230 million over 5 years. He said, okay, fine, I'll go. So the fan base knows he didn't want to be here. Then you show up, you're suspended for the first 11 games of your time there because of what Dominique was talking about before. You've never really owned up to that. And over the course of the first 3 years, you play a total of 19 games. You play poorly in all of them. The team doesn't win. You missed last year completely because you tore your Achilles and then you tore it again while you're rehabbing. You come out, you got to beat out a 5th-round pick for the starting job. You're making $46 million this year. You got to beat out a 5th-round pick, and you can't clearly do it. They have every right to boo.
And then this past
boo.
weekend did not play well.
That's
I
what
was
I'm
with
saying.
us after week 1, and I said, week 1, I thought Deshaun played better than Shedeur. Week 2, Deshaun struggled mightily against what was probably for the most part backups and third-string players for Buffalo. And so to sit there and say it's not performance-based, you can have that opinion, but the performance warranted it. There was a moment where Deshaun could have endeared himself in the smallest way to that fan base and said, listen, I don't like getting booed, but I haven't held up my end of the bargain for both injury and performance. You pay your hard-earned dollars to come watch us play. I didn't do my job well enough.
Yes.
I don't like it. I agree with the booing when I'm injured isn't a fun experience, but it happened. But to sit there and say it's only personal doesn't come off as good. And that's why if I'm the Cleveland Browns and I'm Todd Monken, there is no way that you could come out today and say, this is our guy. You can't do that to the fan base that is starving and obviously loves Shedeur.
And I don't know what you would point to justify that because, to your point, like you can look at their numbers, but it's the way that they're playing. Deshaun Watson is more prone to take checkdowns at this point. Shedeur Sanders isn't perfect, and the interception that he had in the last game was the tip ball, so I don't put that on him. And he had an interception down the field in the previous game. But the thing about Shedeur is he's young. You could anticipate there's a potential that he could get better, but he's like trying to win the job. He's attacking downfield in a way that you want your quarterback to do, and he's much better on those intermediate routes than Deshaun Watson.
But how much of this is a football decision right now? Like truly,
The Browns are going to tell you it's completely a football.
It can't
decision.
be though. Like it can't be.
But this is a front office that is process driven, analytics driven, all these kinds of things. The reason Deshaun is still on the team, in spite of being clearly the worst acquisition in the history of the National Football League, is because they have stubbornly restructured his contract every single year to save short-term cap space to the point where now, if they cut him, they would have $127 million of dead salary cap charges to deal with. They can't do it. Nobody has that kind of cap room. And so they're in a position where he's on the team because he has to be. If you go with Shedeur Sanders, Deshaun Watson's still going to be on the team. There's nothing they can do about that. No one's trading for him, and even if they did, you'd still have the dead money to deal with. The Cleveland has dug themselves a hole with this. They did it with their eyes open. It's a rotten situation.
The season is still multiple weeks away from beginning, and this is where they are in Cleveland. Again, Todd Monken said that those comments will have nothing to do with his eventual decision. That just seems like something. He is now on the verge of becoming the first player to go from an NFL team to returning to play college football. He played in college for Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin is now at LSU. Daquan Wright now has an agreement in place to go play at LSU. It is happening. We talked about this. We told you it was coming last week. NFL players, there's a ruling that was made by a judge. It's a long, convoluted explanation of how we got here. I won't bore you with the details. The bottom line is Daquan Wright, who since, May, has been working with an NFL team, lining up with and against players in their 20s and 30s, is probably a week from now going to be playing against someone who was in high school last year. How do we feel about it, Dan?
The old man in me doesn't love any part of this, but the floodgates are going to open. This is the first, it will not be the last of this situation. But I can't kill Daquan Wright for going back and getting more money than he might in the NFL and continuing that opportunity. I can't kill Lane Kiffin for taking a player that he thinks is going to help him win. This is what happens when you have severe poor leadership over a long period of time that takes advantage of situations. Players have been the driving force of the income in college football for a long time. We all know that they have not benefited from the revenue that they've generated, and it's just become this wild, wild west of an open can. I don't understand what happens if I am X team And I draft a kid that played college football for 3 years. And I take him in the second round. And after 2 years, he goes, this is not working out for me. I'm going back to play college football. Do I get my pick back? Do I get the money that I've given you back? Because that will happen. That is the next step where a draft pick, it doesn't work out. He goes back to make more money.
We went through this in detail on Thursday. There are any number of ways in which a player in his position probably will make more money in college than he would as an NFL player, and it's guaranteed, and he has the opportunity to then increase his status, his stature, his position, and come back and try again in another year.
Yeah, the college sports situation is, I mean, to Dan's point, there's been some certainly poor leadership, but a refusal to